welcome back to another video. So today in this video I have with me Summer Nights by Hannah Carlson. I thought it would be a great idea to show you all some different ways that you can add depth and dimension to the objects on your coloring pages. I'm going to do a little demonstration where I lay down just two colors and show you the difference and what happens once you come back and add your darkest color. I am only going to use three colors, or try to use only three colors in this video, because I know a lot of beginners follow me that are just learning how to put even just three colors together to create color combinations. Now I'm going to use polychromos for this video. I know you all always see me using Prismacolors, but in the last couple of videos I filmed, I've been using polychromos because I don't know, y'all, I am finding a huge love now for my polychromos in these Hannah Carlson books. And because I want to stick with the Hannah Carlson books, I'm going to use the polychromos because I like them better in these books than my Prismacolors. If you check the description box down below, you'll find links down there to my Facebook group, my Etsy store, and my Patreon if you would like to support me there. I also now have channel membership. If you would like to find more information out about that, you can click the join button down below. So the first thing I wanted to do in this video is I just wanted to show you a couple different ways while I color how I would add depth and dimension. And then I'm going to share with you a few different instances where I've done that in other coloring books or on objects on other coloring pages. So like I said, we're using polychromos. I have light cobalt turquoise, cobalt green, and then I have helio turquoise. I think that's how you say it. I'm going to start by just using only my mid-tone and my lightest color and the white of the paper. I'm going to lay only those colors down over all of the petals here on this flower because my main focus of this video is showing you how to add extra shadows, depth, and dimension to make the objects just lift off the page. Okay, so I went over all of these with just my lightest color, which I'm using as my highlight color. And you can see that I didn't go over all the spaces because I do want to leave some of the white of the paper in each one of these petals, because that's going to help me to create a much bigger difference in the values of the colors. And when I say the values of the colors, I just mean the lightest color compared to the darkest of the colors. So now I have my mid-tone, which is cobalt green, and I'm going to come back in here and I'm going to start laying this color where I want to create a little bit more depth. And I'm also using this just to get a blend of the two colors and to add another layer since these are oil-based pencils. So over here where I have one of the petals laying over the other one, I want to make sure I do get that color in there, and I want to pull it into that lightest color. Over here again, I have this petal laying over this one, so I'm going to make sure I add my mid-tone shade here. And then over here, I'm going to do the same thing. And I'm just going to go around and I'm going to do this on each one of these. And I am still preserving that white of the paper and just adding another layer with this color. And I'm going to go all the way around the flower and do this on each one of these. Now I'm going to come back with my lightest color, and I am just going to add another layer and blend some of these colors in here. And I am still preserving some of the white of the paper. I want to make sure that I do that with every single layer because I like to use the white of the paper a lot of times as an extra added highlight. Now, if you are trying to preserve the white of the paper and you accidentally go over it with your color, you can use your trusty mono eraser. Here is my mono eraser, and it's fabulous for getting into very little tight areas. So you can always go back with that and just pull up just a little bit of wherever you covered with any of the color that you don't want. You could see that it just picked it right up there. Or you can come back later and add some highlights with a Posca pen. So don't ever worry if you make mistakes or what you feel like is a mistake, because mistakes or what you think is a mistake are always very easily remedied. Now I'm coming back and I'm just adding another layer with my mid-tone. So this is what it looks like with just the highlight and the mid-tone. Now I wanted to just get some of these colors laid down here and a few layers down on the paper because I want to come back now and I want you to be able to watch the difference and what happens when I come back and add my darkest color, which is this helio turquoise. What I'm going to do is I'm going to speed it up and add music because you'll be able to see much quicker how the flower just starts to elevate off of the page. And it's actually really neat and really fun to watch. I'm going to add a couple layers, and if you watch, you'll see that I'm only adding this darkest color over the top of where I added my mid-tone, and anywhere that I see one of the petals laying over another petal. For instance, right in here, you're going to see me add some of the darkest color, and then over here, right where this petal is laying over. And what that's going to do is it's going to create that extra depth, because it's going to create the illusion that one petal is laying over the other one. So this is just one of the first ways that I want to show you how you would create extra depth and dimension by shading with your darkest color. Hopefully you could see how much more added depth that created just by me coming back with that darker color. And of course, after you use your darker color, you do need to come back with your other colors and blend some of that color out. So I'm going to come back with my mid-tone, but again, I'm going to try to stay out of the areas where I wanted to keep that pop of highlight, because that pop of highlight is going to make a huge difference as well. And so I'm just going to go over these areas, basically anywhere where the color isn't looking smooth. And it really does help to go in a circular motion. See how it just spreads some of that color out? And I did have to do a whole lot of turning of my book as I was doing this. Never be afraid to turn your book so that it is a more comfortable experience for you while you're coloring, and so you could get your colors laid in the places where you want them. Now I have my lightest color, and I'm just going to come back here and sort of blend these colors out even more, right into where I wanted to keep some of the white of the paper. Now this is just with one color family. I wanted to use just one color family because, again, I know I have a lot of beginners that are just finding my channel or have been watching my videos for some time, and a lot of you like to use just 3 colors, and sometimes when I use more colors, some of you tell me that you get a little bit overwhelmed with all the colors I'm using. So I wanted to try to stick to 3 colors for that reason. See how this lightest color just really blends out all those colors? But of course, when we do the center, it's going to create a little bit more contrast as well, and it's going to make it pop even more. But before we do that, I want to show you the next little trick that I wanted to share with you that is really going to help to make your images pop off your page. And I've done this in previous videos, but I usually use Prismacolors. So I want to show you that all of these same techniques are still possible no matter what colored pencil set you're using. Okay, so one of the things that you can do when you're using your colored pencils, if you want to create greater depth and dimension, and the color that you're using just does not seem dark enough, but you don't want to grab another color to create those shadows, you can always go to grays. And that is why the bigger artist grade sets will give you quite a few grays. You get warm grays and you get cool grays. Generally, when I'm using cool colors, which blue is a cool color, I like to stick to cool grays to use for shading. So we're going to go over here. They're actually calling them cold grays. So I have these 2 cold grays here. Goodness, where's my cold gray one? Okay, so I did find my cold gray one. I'm using it for something else I'm working on, but the cold gray one is definitely going to be too light. So you need to pick a color that you think is going to be dark enough to add all that extra depth and dimension to put in your shaded areas. You probably want to start a little bit lighter and then go a little bit darker. So I may want to start with cold gray 4, and I think I'm actually using that one too. Okay, so here's my cold gray 4. I was using it on something else. And then I'm going to grab cold gray 5. And we're going to try those 2 first. Now I did just use my jar link sharpener to sharpen these. You can see that I've got nice sharp leads. When you're doing something like this, you do always want to make sure your leads are rather sharp. I'm going to start with my lighter gray, and I'm going to go through here and see if it will make any difference. I'm just going to test it first. And it's making a little bit of a difference, but I don't think that's enough. So I'm going to put that one aside, and I'm going to use my cold gray 5. This one should most definitely be dark enough. So anywhere I had that darkest color, I'm going to come in here and just add the gray and try to darken it up just a bit more. And I'm not sure that one's even working enough. Let me go up a little bit more. So I grabbed the even darker gray, and I want to see how much of a difference this one makes. And with this one, I'm going very, very lightly because I don't want to add too much. This one is making quite a bit of difference. And as I do this, I'm going to speed this up again because I want you all to just see it all come together, and I want you to see how much depth we are creating just by adding this color. Look how dark that is getting, and it's just creating the illusion of depth. So when somebody else looks at the objects on your coloring pages, it's not going to look like gray to them. It's just going to look like the object on your coloring page has a whole lot of depth. So I'm going to go through and do this to all of the petals, and I will come back when I'm done. So now after you use gray, or at least what I like to do, is I don't want to see that gray. So I always come back with my darkest color, and anywhere that I've laid that gray, I just go over it. And by doing this, you're adding another layer, creating even more depth and dimension, and you're really making this flower really, really pop. And then of course you always want to come back with your lightest color, and you want to make sure you get a really good blend of all of the colors. So this way you don't see any harsh lines anywhere. And what you're doing is you're just burnishing all of those colors out. So I didn't do the center of the flower, and so I just want to show you another way to create a little bit of depth and dimension. And then I'm going to show you what it looks like on an object that I already colored that has been covered a whole lot more, so you can really get an idea of what it looks like in a much bigger space. So I've been having a lot of fun with my colored Poscas. So I'm going to take this yellow colored Posca, and I am just going to go over all of these. The reason that I'm doing this is because I have already covered them with the colored pencil, and so this is just easier for me to come back and do, and it's a lot quicker too. But it's also going to create a little bit more depth and dimension. And I am trying to cover most of the black lines here so that you really cannot see them anymore. And a lot of times to do that with Posca, you do need to wait for it to dry and then come back again and go over it a second time. So these are the Poscas I'm using. They're just the colored Poscas. I know a lot of times you see me using white, but these are really amazing and I absolutely love them. I've been using them so much more lately because they help you to create more depth. I'm going to grab the hot pink because I think I want to get a little creative and have a hot pink flower right in the center. And then I need to finish the middle off with yellow. Now I need to come back a second time, and this is what creates all the extra depth when you just tap like this, and then the paint from the Posca pen is sort of elevated just a little bit, and then it does cover all of the black lines. And I probably will have to come back again with the yellow and go over those just one more time as well. I went and started this and I didn't have my camera on. So we are going to start over, but there is one other way that I want to show you on this flower how you would create extra added depth and dimension and make an object look like it is just coming up off the page. And that is going to be again with grays, but we're going to use them in a little bit of a different way. This is my Polychromos again. It is Cold Gray 5. There is going to be one other thing that I need to show you, but I need to show you this first because the final step that is going to create all the added depth here over the flower is going to be the final and last step. But I do need to wait for the Posca to dry, and hopefully I don't stick my pencil or my finger into it. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go around to the back of the petal now, and very lightly we're just going to do this all around the edges towards the back of the petal. But you'll be able to see after I do this around the whole entire flower how it makes it look even more elevated. It's so super cool, the illusion that it gives it. And you can see how I'm holding my pencil. I am holding back really, really far on my pencil because this gray is rather dark and I don't want to get too much of it down there on the paper. But all this is going to do is just create a really cool illusion. And I am going to grab some pages that I've colored where I've actually done this. And I'm going to show you this technique on a much bigger scale. And you don't have to use polychromos to do this. You can do this with absolutely any colored pencil set that you have, of course, as long as there are grays in the set. And even a lot of the budget-friendly sets have grays as well. And in most of them you get some cool grays and some warm grays. Now I'm just going back around in a circular motion and just pulling that color out just a little bit further. But do you see how that just lifted it even just a little bit more? Is that so super cool? And then the very last thing I want to show you is stickles. Now the stickles are going to create even more depth and dimension right here in the center where I laid the Posca. And I like laying the Posca under it because the Posca covers most of those black lines. I wasn't able to get it to cover all of the black lines, but you probably could if you wanted to come back and keep reapplying layers. But for the sake of the video, I feel like I've already been filming for a very long time. I have this color. This is Sunburst. This is my favorite. And Hibiscus. These are two of my favorite stickles colors. I will always have a link to where you could get the stickles for absolute cheapest and all of the colors individually in the description box below. But let's go ahead and apply the stickles, and you're gonna see that this gives it even more depth. You see how it just raises it just a little bit? But there's just so many things you can do to add more depth to the objects on your coloring pages, or even just your entire coloring page as a whole. And if you have something that you want to be the focal point of the page, you can use all of these techniques on that one object to really make it stand out. See how you can make these stickles just really raise super high, but it definitely makes a huge difference. They do just take a little while to dry, and that's why I wanted to do this as the very last step. And I have to see if I can get this right there in the center. But hopefully you can see that on camera. That added a whole lot more depth just with the glitter alone. But all of these techniques, you can use them all together. You can use them separately. You can use them on different parts of your page, but this is what they look like when you use every one of them on one object. And now I'm going to share with you some of the things I've colored that I've used some of these techniques on. So here's the bug that I'm currently working on. I just posted a shorts video where I colored this and asked you all if you wanted to see a tutorial, and all of you said yes. So I just got done filming the tutorial for gemstones. I'll link that one in the upper right hand corner, but I just wanted to show you this because some of the techniques that I just showed you I did use here on this bug. Before I went in and I added the yellow, it was just a lot of blues and like the mauvey colors and the purples and all of that, and it just was missing something. So I went and colored the gemstone and I added the blues and the yellows and then this yellow here where it sort of turns into green to make the gemstone look really cool and to give it a little bit of contrast. And then I was a little confused about where I should go next. I really didn't know. And so I started adding all of this yellow, and that's where my yellow Posca came in and my stickles. So all of this here, and I do still need to finish this, but all of this here is all a bunch of yellow Posca, and it made it look as though it was a little bit elevated from the page. And then I came back and used my Sunburst stickles just like I did on the flower, and I love the way that it turned out. But between the Posca taking out most of the black lines, as you can see here, I didn't do enough to where it would cover all of it. And I think I am going to look into another paint pen that might have a little bit more coverage. I don't know yet which brand that I'm going to look into, but I want to experiment with a few of the other paint pens, or maybe even try some more acrylic paint. I have used acrylic paint on the coloring pages in this book, and it works beautifully without any issues. So maybe I should have grabbed my yellow acrylic paint and put it down here and then applied the sickles at the top, and it probably would have made it a little bit more opaque, but I'm happy with how it turned out. And after this bug is done, I'm probably going to come back and do the other little trick I showed you, where I do the gray shading all the way around the back of him so that he really pops off the page. But I love the way he's turning out so far, and he is almost done. I'll share it in my Facebook group as soon as he's finished. And then these flowers here I wanted to share with you because this video was sort of the same idea. You can see how elevated and 3D this flower here really looks. It was basically a video showing you how you could create all that added extra depth. Of course, there are obstacles on here. I was a little bit extra creative, did the same lines I did on the flower I just shared with you today, but it is sort of the same idea. And that was a really great video as well. So if you want to see that, I'll link that in the upper right hand corner so you can go back and watch that. But that video was called How to Make Your Objects on Your Coloring Pages Go From Flat to 3D. And I love the way that flower turned out. But this one was in World of Flowers by Johanna Basford. And this is another one of my favorite books. I don't color in it often enough though, because I don't know, y'all, I always seem to go back to flowers again. And now I'm stuck on Hannah Carlson books. I don't even know why, because usually I'm not stuck on the Hannah Carlson books, but very recently I have been. But this is another one I did. This was done with Prismacolors, and I wanted to show you this because I was able to create even more depth with this one, because I did take the gray and I went very closely all the way around the edge, and you can see that I did pull it out and create a shadow. But it does make a difference if you pull it out just a little bit, like I did a little bit of on the flower. And as you come out, you just make it a little bit lighter. You can, when you're using the grays to do this effect, you even can use two different grays, a darker gray and a lighter gray, and then pull it out. But this one looks really cool because I also use the Mungio pastels, either the Mungio or the Jane Davenport. I'm not sure which ones, but because I put this background here on the page and left a little bit of white in between the gray shading and the background, it made it look like it was popping even more and even more elevated from the page. But this one was done long ago, probably before I even had a YouTube channel. And I think maybe this may have been one of the very first tutorials on my YouTube channel where I showed how to put gray back here and create all that extra added depth. I'm really not sure. I'd have to go back and look. So I hope this video was really helpful and showed you many different ways to add depth and dimension to the objects on your coloring pages. Everything that you've seen me use in this video will be linked down in the description box below. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you all in the next video. Happy coloring. Bye.